Hello beautiful people, welcome to Remi's Fashion. My name is Remi Forde-Hyde. On this channel, we upload pattern drafting and sewing tutorials every week. I want to say a big thank you to you all for subscribing and watching my videos. You guys rock! In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to draft a basic sleeve pattern from which we can create different sleeves designs. There are so many different ways of drafting sleeve patterns. If you want to learn an easier way to draft this pattern, then keep watching. These are the measurements you will need to draft your sleeve pattern. The materials we will need to draft this pattern are: I have our basic bodice pattern that we drafted in our last tutorial. If you haven't seen that, I'm going to link it in the description box below and on the cards above. You will need to have drafted the basic bodice pattern for you to be able to draft the basic sleeve pattern. I have my rulers, I have my straight ruler, my pattern master, and a very long ruler to help me in ruling those long lines. I'm going to be using markers so that you can see clearly what I'm doing, but you should use a pencil. And then you should have an eraser to be able to clean when you make mistakes and a sharpener to sharpen your pencil. I have a tracing wheel, which I'm going to be using to trace out some lines in our basic sleeve pattern. I have my measuring tape here, pattern paper to draft our basic sleeve pattern, and a paper scissors. The first thing we need to do is to measure the armhole of our basic bodice pattern for both the front and the back. I'm going to measure the armhole of my basic bodice pattern. I have 20 inches. After measuring my basic bodice pattern, I have 20 inches. So I'm going to note that down. I will divide my bicep, my elbow, and wrist measurements into two. Whatever you get is what we're going to plot on our horizontal lines. So now, I'm now going to fold my paper into two. So this is the pattern paper I'm going to be working with. I'm going to put it on fold. So I'll fold it into two. And then I'm going to draw out a starting point. I always like to have a starting point before I start any project. So I'll draw out my starting point. And this starting point is going to be my shoulder. And then the first thing I'm going to do is to draw out my vertical measurements. My vertical measurements for my basic sleeve are shoulder to bicep, shoulder to elbow, and then shoulder to the wrist, or the length of your sleeve, depending wherever you want the length of your sleeve to be. So my measurement from the armhole is 20 inches. My bicep circumference measurement, my elbow and wrist circumference measurements are going to be divided into two. Whatever you get is what we're going to plot on our horizontal lines. So I'm now going to draw out my vertical lines. So the first vertical line I'm going to be drawing out is the length of our sleeve. And the length of my sleeve is going to be 24 inches. So I'll measure from my shoulder 24 inches down. It's going to put me here, and I will mark. And then I will draw a horizontal line to connect the points. This is my length, and it's also going to be my wrist line. The next vertical measurement I'm going to be drawing out is that of my sleeve cap. The sleeve cap is where we're going to plot our bicep measurement. So to get that, I will use this formula. 2/3 of my armhole length. My armhole length is 9 inches. This is what I used when I drafted my basic bodice pattern. 2/3 of my armhole length. 2 divided by 3 is going to give me 0.6666. And by the time I multiply that by 9, it's going to give me 6 inches. So I'm going to measure 6 inches from my starting point, which is my shoulder line. So 6 inches is going to put me here. I will mark. And then I'm going to draw a horizontal line to connect the points. This is my sleeve cap, and this is where I'm going to be plotting in my bicep measurement. So I'm just going to call this my bicep line. And then this is my shoulder line. And then the next vertical measurement I'm going to be drawing out is that of my elbow. From my shoulder to my elbow is 14 inches. So I'm going to measure 14 inches from my shoulder line, and I will mark. And then I will draw a horizontal line to connect the points. So this is my elbow line. The next thing I'm going to do now is to plot in our horizontal measurements. I will start with the bicep. My bicep circumference measurement is 17 inches. By the time I divide that by 2 is 8.5 inches. So I'm going to measure 8.5 inches on this line. 8.5 inches. You put me here and I will mark. Then my elbow circumference measurement is 14 inches. By the time I divide that by 2, it's going to give me 7 inches. So I'm going to measure 7 inches on this line, on the elbow line. 7 inches puts me here and I will mark. So the next circumference measurement is my wrist. I'm drawing a long sleeve. So if you do not want to draw a long sleeve, whatever length you want to draft out, once you measure to the length, you take the circumference of that part. That is what you're going to plot in. So, but for me, it's going to be my wrist. So my wrist circumference measurement is 9.5 inches. By the time I divide that by 2, it's going to give me 4.75 inches. And that's what I'm going to be plotting in. So I will measure and plot in. 4.75 puts me here and I will mark. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect my points. I'm going to connect from my bicep line to my elbow line, from the elbow to the wrist line. So I will connect like this. This will connect to this. And then this will connect to this. So the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to rule a diagonal line from the starting point to the bicep measurement like this. So I'm going to take the measurement of that line. This line is 10.5 inches. So I'm going to divide it into 2. So I'll find the midpoint of this line. And this is the midpoint of this line. I will mark. And then I'll measure 1/2 inch upwards like this. I will now draw out the front of our sleeves. So I'm going to start from the top here. Using my French curve, I'll connect from the top of my shoulder line to this point, to the midpoint of the diagonal line we drew. I will turn my curve and connect to our bicep line. I'll connect like this. So that's the front curve. To draw the back curve, I'm going to be connecting from the shoulder line to 1/2 inch that we went up. Like this, with a curve, and then I will use a straight line from that point to our bicep line, like this, and that is our back. So the blue marker is the back, while the red marker is the front. I'm not going to add any seam allowance to my basic sleeve pattern because I'm going to keep this as a master copy and use it to draft other sleeve designs. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut this out. So this is our sleeve pattern. And when I open it up, this is what we have. So now I want the left side to be my front and the right side is going to be the back of my pattern. I'm going to write it down. So this is going to be my front. And then this is going to be my back. So now I'm going to use my tracing wheel and I'm going to trace the front. Once I trace the front, I will now cut out the front. So this is my front, this is my back. So I'm going to use my tracing wheel now. I'm going to trace the front to the part where I decided that I want to be my front. I want the left hand side to be my front. So I'm going to trace. After tracing, I will now cut it out. So I'm just going to cut out the front side. So this is what our sleeve pattern looks like. So this is the front and this is the back. I hope this tutorial was helpful. Please subscribe and put on your notification bell so that anytime I upload new tutorials, you will be the first to be notified. Thank you for watching. See you in another tutorial. Take care and God bless.